2 feet higher. And what that does for compliant structures is it significantly lowers flood insurance rates because it significantly lowers risk. And I'll show a few slides later, but we found historically that when we've had major flood events, the structures that are built according to these standards suffer a lot less damage. In fact, in many cases, people can just clean the mud out of their driveways and move back in if they have electricity. So our role at the DEC, we don't have a regulatory role in this program, but we do have a responsibility to serve as a resource for local governments, provide technical assistance, and frankly, occasionally come to your office and look at how you do your permitting, how your development has gone, and we call it a community assistance visit. You might think of it as an audit. We're not looking to play gotcha, but we do have a responsibility in our partnership with FEMA to make sure that you're carrying out your responsibilities. So what I'm going to talk about this evening is I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about flood risk itself. And we've had our share of flooding in this part of the state. Doesn't look like that's going to go away anytime soon. And then I'm going to talk about some changes that Congress did a year ago that will have very significant impacts on flood insurance, on costs, expenses, and what's going to happen with people who live in these flood hazard areas. And then I'll conclude by offering some ways that those issues can be mitigated at the local level. I'm definitely going to say a few things that some people in the room aren't going to like. I didn't invent the law, I'm just the messenger. I'm just trying to learn as much as I can about it and provide you with as accurate information as I can. So flooding itself is the most common and most expensive natural disaster in the nation. I need to update this slide because it says $5 billion in 2010. Well, that didn't include Irene, Lee, Sandy, all those wonderful names that none of us are going to ever name our kids again. Sandy itself is looking like the 3rd largest natural disaster in the United States history in terms of cost. 2nd or 3rd only to Katrina, of course, and to Hurricane Andrew in Florida in the early 90s. Something unique about flooding, though, is that we can map it, sort of. A flood insurance rate map, which is what we call the FEMA maps, shows the areas that are most likely to flood. It doesn't show every area that will flood, nor does it show every area that's certain to flood, but it shows the areas that are most likely to flood. But these flood maps are vital tools. You need to be using them to make sure that you develop your community in a sustainable manner. They should be used for emergency management. People should be aware of them for personal protection and for property protection. So let's talk a little bit about the force of flooding. This slide illustrates standing water pushing against a house. We call it a hydrostatic force. This is one of the main causes of flood damage to structures. And water exerts the same amount of pressure sideways as downwards. Most walls are not built to withstand that kind of lateral pressure, so when you have floodwaters coming up against a really solidly built foundation, there can be the tendency to collapse that foundation.